I'm going to talk today about I call these a technology trigger. In one of my books, I talked about, 5 different ways to get new ideas. One of them, what's the problem? That's the most obvious. And, at Facebook, the guys couldn't get a date, so they invented Facebook, right? But one of those triggers, one of the 5 triggers, is technology triggers. And the idea is that when you become aware of a new technology, you can be creative about how you might apply and adapt that technological breakthrough. And so the one I want to talk about today is one called Radio Garden. This is actually, a website. I learned about it several months ago, and I was blown away by it. If you haven't seen it, what it is, this website is streaming or allows you to stream live every radio station in the world. And so if you click on the global map that they have and go into Paris, there'll be 200 radio stations and you could pick whatever one you want to listen to. Or in London, there might be 300. And I happen to click on one in Christchurch, New Zealand. I mean, surfing the world, it's so entertaining and so interesting and so fun. At the time, I was working on a project for a client on pest removal. And I happened to come across, I couldn't believe it, I came across an anti-insecticide called Hitman. And so, just the diversity of that and the curiosity that implied was so extraordinary to me. So what do you do with that? And in a world of synchronicity, I had a friend who at the time had asked me, she's an innovation person, lives in Michigan, and she was trying to get a job at Trek Bicycles, which was close to her hometown. And she said, "You got any ideas for me?" And I thought that question was a very good one in itself, right? Because when you go to interviews, in my opinion, you should be going with ideas. Not only ideas for the organization that are relevant to the job that you're seeking. She was looking for innovation, advertising, and communication. But also, maybe you can go in and invent a new job. And so you can be proactive about that. So the idea I came up with her that linked to this technology was, it's not particularly creative, but here you go, Trek Around the World. So go to Trek and say, why don't you create a campaign called Trek Around the World? When people click on a radio station somewhere around the world, there'll be a side panel that comes up, a mini ad that says, by the way, you can buy a Trek bicycle, in this particular town. Or another idea, maybe she goes to them with a different business model and says, we know from our inside work that people like to try expensive bikes before they buy. And so why don't you set up a worldwide dealer network where people can try these bikes, right? And again, you would advertise those on the Radio Garden app. So I guess the takeaway for me is when you hear all these new technologies, if you mash them up with things that are in your world from a synchronicity standpoint, or just if you're trying to invent new things, the technologies can help you do that. And the last thing I would say, last week we had a book called Winning the War for Talent in the 2020s. And in the chapter I wrote for that book, I wrote a chapter called Inventing Jobs That Don't Yet Exist as a Vehicle for Attracting and Retaining Talent. And so it would be a simple thing to combine, say, technologies with job titles, right? And different industries. You mash up some of those words and you will be able to invent a new job. So I like to end my curious and quirky talk with a challenge to the audience. My challenge would be, how could you use Radio Garden, say, at your organization, maybe to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, or certainly in the classroom as a way to create greater cultural awareness? Thank you.